Okay, you guys, I had quite a few requests to do a tutorial on this particular page. Poppies are one of my favorite flowers, and so I really enjoy painting them. This particular page was really fun because it's in Song of Songs, so the text is actually really short. So I actually had two sides to illustrate, and so depending on what passage you do, of course, your layout may look completely different than mine. But we're gonna do a similar style one on a different page, which will change the layout. But I do want you to notice the difference in height levels I have and the difference in sizes and shapes of the poppies. I think that's one of the most important things to pay attention to is the fact that they're all shaped a little differently and they all face a little bit differently. So you get them at different angles, like this one compared to this one. This one you don't even see the center. So, you know, that's super important when you're planning out your next page. So let's go ahead and turn to the page that I'm gonna start on and I'll show you what I do. Okay, this is the page I'm gonna work on today, and it's Matthew 6 and 7, but it's one of my favorite passages in the scripture because it talks about, right here, the cure for anxiety, and one of the verses says, can any of you add 1 moment to his lifespan by worrying? And why do you worry about clothes? Observe how the wildflowers of the field grow. They don't labor or spin thread. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon today in all his splendor was adorned like one of these. And so because it mentions flowers, I'm gonna go ahead and do another poppy composition here on this page. One of my favorite things to do, I like to start out by just reading the actual passages on the page and just highlighting what speaks to me. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that first before I get started on my composition or my colors or anything like that. Okay, so I went through and highlighted, I say highlight, but I still use watercolor for this. I just like to do it that way. I prefer to be able to still read everything in the Bible when I'm finished. So, you know, some people may not, but I like to go ahead and use the same colors of watercolor to highlight before I actually get started. It just always kind of makes it a little bit more interesting. And this page had a lot of really important parts of scripture, including the Lord's Prayer and ask and it will be given to you, and the kingdom of God, including the worrying and anxious passage I read earlier. So there's a lot going on this page, but I decided to just go ahead and highlight kind of what spoke to me today. And I went ahead and used the colors that I'm gonna use on this page. I like to go ahead and kind of pick out my color scheme before I get started, and I'm using Holbein watercolors. They're my favorite ones, and I love them because they last forever, and I put them in this little metal tin. These little pieces pop out really easily. Since I said that, it's not gonna pop out easily at all, but you can remove these little white buckets and wash them out completely if you want to, and then just pop them back in wherever you want. But it's pretty great because it's got mixing palettes on either side. So I like to try to limit my color scheme to about 5 different colors. And as you can see, I didn't make it down to 5, but I guess if you remove white and black, it is 5. So we'll count it that way. The colors I'm gonna use today are Chinese white, Jaune Brilliant. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but it's just a peach color. Gamboge Nova. This is like my favorite yellow color. It's kind of a mustardy yellow. Brilliant Pink, which I would say it's more of a rose pink. It's a more pastel. It's this color right here. Shadow Green. This is one of my very favorite greens. It's real dark and just pretty to build on. Olive Green. This one's a bit brighter and pretty much what you would expect. And then Ivory Black. Okay, so now it's time to think about our composition, and depending on your page, it's probably gonna change, but I like to have an asymmetrical design. So something that I'm really thinking about is I would really like a big flower right here, kind of as the feature, just because there's some blank space here. And I think what I'm going to do is have the flowers kind of sweep up in this direction. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my mechanical pencil and just very lightly trace it out so I know where to paint. And while I'm doing this, I'm also really considering how a poppy looks. So basically a poppy is, you can think of it as two ovals. In a lot of ways it has a top petal and a bottom petal with a center in between. So if you think about it like that, you can really you know, picture it in different angles in the wind. And as I draw, I'm gonna, you know, have some of them that are more folded together, some really open. Maybe it's on its way out, maybe it's brand new and it's still balled up or starting to go. So you really need to think about just the different angles of all the flowers and how you might view it, because there's no angle at which you would ever view something in nature where everything is perfectly straightforward. So that's the main key when you're tracing them out. So I know that I want one really big one for sure, like right here. And maybe I want it to face down a little bit. So I'm gonna draw my big oval there and have the stem kind of come out this direction, just like that. And maybe you see a little bit of a petal here that are falling down from it, since it's a big one right there. So looking at that, maybe I'm gonna do another one right about here with the center like that. Hey buddy, you're kind of in the light. My son is helping me. He's doing his own poppy painting over here. So when you come see, it'll make it darker right there. So why don't you come right here and check it out? Is that okay? Cool, okay. So I've got another one right here. Let's do some more behind there. So I'm gonna keep drawing, and I kind of just want them to be built up. I'm gonna just really lightly, nothing major. Kind of go here. You know, I don't have any of the just little buds, so I'm gonna make a circular one right there just to kind of see what happens. And then it looks like I want to do another one right about here. So I'm literally just tracing it out. Honestly, sometimes I don't even follow my own sketch. But as you can see, I'm just trying to fill the space in a way that looks realistic, you know, suggests that they're growing naturally. And don't forget to do edges, because, you know, in nature, you're gonna see the edge of a flower, or you're gonna see just a partial one in the background, and that's important to remember as well. So because we've got this big feature one right here, I think I'm also going to make just a small couple others right here just to kind of offset it a bit. And then let's also think a little bit about leaves. So I've got some blank spaces, and I like to do the leaves. They're just as important as the flowers. So I'm gonna do an offshoot there, pretty big one. A leaf right there, maybe one right there. And I just like to kind of use them as filler. Poppy leaves are more like a straight line, and then they have little tiny branches coming off of them. So definitely Google that if you want to see what they actually look like. And your rendition can be realistic or not, but mine will be somewhere in between, I'm sure. So I'm just using the leaves right now to just fill up the empty space. And again, I'm just literally drawing the main branch line, and that's it. Okay, so now let's get started painting. The first thing I'm gonna do is actually paint the poppies themselves. So I'm going to use a round brush for this. This is just the Artist Loft brand from Michaels. And this particular size is the size 5 brush. I also have on hand this one, it's the size 1. And as you can see, they're both round brushes. That's gonna allow us to have a real blobby, circular, organic shape. And that's super important while you're trying to create something like petals. Another thing I'm really remembering is that nothing is symmetrical again. So I'm gonna make sure that, you know, my center of the flower is not always exactly in the center, and that sometimes the leaves are turned or the petals are turned one way or the other while I'm painting. So my main petal color, I wanted to change it up from the bright red that I did last time, is gonna be this brilliant pink. I don't even know if these pink poppies exist in real life, but they're gonna exist right here in my Bible. And I'm also gonna use this peach color as one of the main colors, picking up some of this white. So I really want a brighter look for these particular poppy leaves. So I'm gonna pick up a little bit of pink, not much at all. I try to keep as little water on my page as possible because it will wrinkle a bit. And I'm gonna get started here. I like to concentrate my color kind of towards the base of the flower, and then maybe pick up a little bit of water and just pull it out so that it looks a little bit more natural as the color fades a bit. And again, I'm not being too particular about if it's on the, like, I see my pencil lines through the watercolor most of the time, and it doesn't bother me. But if it bothers you, you'll definitely want to pay attention to that. I'm gonna pick up a little bit of white here and just add it in and kind of just dot it on top of the pink, just because I can. Keep moving on. This one I'm gonna add a little bit of the peach color to my pink. You can see it makes it a little bit darker there, which I like. I think that's fun. Here's another one. It's more of a circle shape. And as you can see, this is real messy. Like I don't get particular about symmetry or anything like that. In fact, I don't want symmetry at all. I'm just gonna make it a big old blob. And one of my favorite things to do is make a blob like that and then pick up some more color and then just dot it and let the color bleed really pretty, which is fun. I'm loving that peach. Okay, here's some more right here. And that little edge right there, get the edge of my paper. Got it on the next page, that's okay. All right, I'm gonna make this one really, really nice and pink, just to pull in some of the same color from here. Make sure you can see it really well. It's got kind of a wild petal falling off of there. And then don't forget about our little buds over here. Make them nice and circular. Okay, then I'm gonna go ahead, just for the heck of it, because I like pink, I'm gonna take some of this and just blob it over here to imitate some more flowers that may be surrounding this page. I feel like there needs to be some pink here. And how about right there too? And then I'm gonna do the same with the peach color, just to kind of keep it real nice and consistent. Okay, perfect. So there are our petals first drowned. I'm gonna wait for this to dry a little bit, and then I'll get started on the leaves. Okay, it is dry for the most part. So now I'm gonna start on my leaves. I'm gonna pick up the two shades of green that I have. I have olive green and shadow green. And olive green is obviously a little bit lighter, a lot lighter than shadow green, but I'm gonna alternate between the two. Shadow green can get pretty light itself. And then I've got, I've got another, this is it's called a liner. a Master's Touch Fine Art Studio liner, and this is a number 2. You can see it's a really thin, round one. And then this is just a round brush, but honestly, this is a number 8. I don't consider this a round brush because do you see that tip right there? That really makes a pointed edge. So even though it says round on it, I don't consider this a round brush and I don't use it as a round brush. I like this for leaves because it gives me that pointed tip when I paint. So I'm going to be doing my stems in the smaller liner brush and then my leaves in this particular round brush, which is not so round. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the shadow green because it actually lightens up quite a bit in my opinion. I'm gonna add some good water to it to make sure it is quite light. And then I'm just gonna start very carefully lining out these stems. There's no rhyme or reason, but you do need to kind of think about, you know, the fact that some of these stems are behind each other. I don't worry too much about the weight. My lines are pretty uneven and that is okay. But I am gonna kind of make it flow all in one direction. Just like that. Okay, so I'm gonna continue to do this. Just imagining that there's all sorts of flowers coming up and around. Even over here a little bit. Okay, once I've done that, now it's time to add in some of those little leaves. Right there. Just like that. Okay, so I'm liking the way that's looking. Small leaf right there, and maybe a couple coming in like that. Okay, so I like the general flow of this so far. I'm gonna wet the larger brush that I have. And come stand over here, buddy, if you want to watch. Can you come over this way? Thank you. Now I'm going to take this brush, get some of that water off, pick up some of that olivey green, mix it a little bit with my shadow green. And I like to start at the very base of these because I tend to get heavy-handed. And you just kind of pull just like that. I like the different, it's kind of transparent and I really like the way that it does that. Creates just some different opacities and I think that's really super fun. So I get into that. Oops, I accidentally added some leaves on a stem. That's fine. I'm just gonna keep going. Pick up a little bit more water. It is important to get as much depth. So like I want lights and dark. So like right here, this makes me really happy that it started out really dark and then it transitioned to light. That's pretty much what I want. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. Doesn't always happen, but. Starting to fill out and I feel like the leaves are complementing the flowers themselves, which is nice. I'm gonna add a little bit more green in here, right here. And then add some leaves to this one. Again, I'm just picking up that olive green a little bit and then Okay, so that looks pretty good to me. Actually, I'm gonna add in a few more leaves down here. Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna let that dry and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, so now I'm gonna add a little bit more depth to my flowers, and I'm gonna use this liner brush again. I'm gonna layer on top of the pink that I already have. So what I'm going to do is pick up a little bit of that color and then actually add just a touch of black to it, just a tiny little bit to darken it up. This pink kind of has a white base to begin with, so this could get interesting. But all I really need is a little bit more depth for it, and I don't want to go to a different pink. So I'm gonna just start, and then I'm gonna go to the base of the flower. This particular one, you're not gonna be able to see the center, so you kind of need to know where your center is gonna be. I'm actually gonna darken that up just a touch. It's not quite enough contrast for me. It's making kind of a rosy gray out of it. And I'm just gonna pull straight from the center of that flower, or the base of that flower, outward. Kind of like that, kind of creating some detail on the flower itself. This one's gonna have a sort of a centery color, so there's that, just to create some lines on it. I'm not too worried about the depth, the thickness or anything like that. This one has kind of a hidden center, so I'm gonna kind of go from the center there, and then pretend that that leaf is kind of turned out, or that petal, not leaf, excuse me. And this one, a little bit more in the center. Okay, so now that I have my sort of pinky grayish lines laid out, I'm going to go in even darker with my round brush, just a small round brush, and straight up black. And I'm just gonna touch it very gently in the flowers that actually have centers that you can see. So not all of them, but just a few. And it should pick up a little bit of what I just painted and bleed that direction. I want a lot of really good contrast here, so that's what I'm going for. If it doesn't bleed, it's okay. All right. So there is that. Now, I love the way the peach is looking kind of like a highlight on these flowers. So I'm gonna go ahead and add in just a bit more on a couple of these, just to continue that look and make it a little bit more contrasty. Kind of gives it a good highlight there. All right, so now it is time to add in a little bit more depth to the leaves themselves. So I'm gonna go back to that liner brush and do pretty much the same thing with the leaves. I'm gonna pick up a lot of that shadow green and just kind of pull in a little bit more darkness. I love the way this stem right here is picking up some of the dark centers of the flowers. So I'm gonna add in just a little bit more depth with the shadow green now. And I'm gonna focus mostly on the centers of the leaves, since I feel like that's where you would see a lot of depth. Maybe even do a few leaf licking. Okay, so for one of the last things, I think, I'm gonna take a very small brush. This is, what size is this? I can't even see. It's a 1 and it's a round brush. And I'm gonna start to pull in some of the yellow, the Gamboge Nova. I don't even know if I'm saying that correctly, but it's a mustardy yellow. It actually kind of dries a little bit brighter than it looks on the tube. But I'm gonna go in and paint a background now. And the reason I like to paint the background last is because you really can kind of see, it allows your colors, your white paper to shine through in the most important parts, which is the flowers. If I had painted a background first and then tried to paint the flowers on top, you wouldn't see the pretty white highlights in the flower. So I'm going to paint the background very last, and I chose to do yellow this time because I want it to kind of blend in with the leaves so that you focus more on the petals here. Last time I did blue and that worked out really nicely, but this time I'm just going to simply just paint the yellow in varying shades. I'm not going to worry too much about the evenness. In fact, I don't really want it to be even at all. But I'm just literally taking my brush. I'm going to put some pigment on the paper and then just sort of spread it around, around the flowers and the leaves. If it touches, it's fine. It's not such a huge deal, but I try to kind of leave a little bit of space between. And another thing to remember is that skies are not always blue, you know. They're yellow sometimes, and sometimes they're purple, and sometimes they're brown if you live in West Texas like I do. But, you know, don't feel like just because it's a sky you need to paint it blue. Of course, a blue sky is always pretty and nice, but you don't need to feel pressure to make every sky you do perfectly blue. Okay, so I think I'm pretty much done. The very, very last thing that I want to do is go in with a few touches of that rose pink just to make it really nice and crisp and bright in a few places. And then I think I'm almost done. I'm not even watering it down here. I'm just almost using it as thick as acrylic paint here, just to add in a few textury, bright pops. Okay, and I think I am finished. Okay, my page is dry, and the last step that I like to do is add a few fun little stickers or phrases. This particular design, I didn't have any words or anything like that, so I'm gonna add a couple of my own in. Today, I use this Dayspring. These are actually planner stickers, but I like to use them to customize for myself. So I'm gonna pull one of these out and put the word adorned on there, because God talks about how the flowers of the field are adorned. And I need to remember that I am as well. I'm gonna use my black Stabilo marker. These are really nice and tiny, so I love that. I'm just gonna write. Adorned. I think I spelled that correctly, did I? Yeah. Stick that right there. And then I also love these Illustrated Faith cardstock stickers. They just have the same phrases in lots of different colors. And so I'm gonna use Equipped Enough, because I feel like that is what my struggle is half the time, is feeling enough. Stick that on there. And then I also love this phrase right here. Loved beyond measure. Perfect. You know what, just to be a little extra, because I always am, I love these little hexagonal stickers from Illustrated Faith, and I'm gonna do some black ones since I have the black centers of the poppies in here. I like these polka dot ones a lot. Just throw them in. I'll include these, a link to these on my post for you guys. I have some affiliate links, so you guys can go check those out. Let's do one more. Cute. Okay, I think we're all finished. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you lasted this long, I so appreciate it. And hopefully I'll be able to do a few more videos for you guys in the future.